Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlewoman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr.
Congresswoman
Chairman.
Kaptur.
Mr. Secretary, some contend the timing of what you call in your testimony a financial crisis unprecedented in our lifetime was actually a calculated Wall Street scenario underpinned with masterful deceit and extraordinary moral hazard. Your clarion call for the taxpayer bailout of Wall Street's excess came 6 weeks before a major national election when our government is the most vulnerable and tender, and Congress skittish. What your orchestration yielded was an unprecedented dumping of private sector losses on the U.S. taxpayer. History will show that the U.S. government and you knew about Wall Street's growing losses long before the Bank of America Merrill merger. In fact, Bank of America's purchase of Countrywide in January of 2008 was but another positioning of private sector interests in preparation for what I call the greatest Hail Mary pass of all time in taking those Wall Street losses and placing them on the next 3 generations. What interests me is who you helped and who you didn't. Yesterday's New York Times reports that Goldman Sachs, the firm at which you spent your life, posted the largest quarterly profit in its 140-year history, $3.4 billion. Each Goldman employee reportedly could earn $770,000 this year. And the same paper's lead editorial yesterday states, across our nation, unemployment is rising, foreclosures are surging, lending is still constrained. I wish I had an hour to talk to you about that. It looks like some very rich people are profiting handsomely. And I can tell you that those profits at Goldman, they'd resolve about 1/4 of the housing situation in Ohio that we face today. Since appointment by President Bush as Secretary of Treasury in 2006 until today, have you or any of your family had any financial ties or investments related to Goldman Sachs in any way whatsoever?
No.
Thank you. What about Bank of America?
Not that I know of.
President Bush was not the first president you served. Who was the first president you served?
Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon. And who did you report to in the White House in those days? Who was the head of your staff?
I reported first to Lou Ingman and then to John Ehrlichman.
Thank you. Let me ask you about the deals you structured while at Treasury. In terms of the warrants that you structured in the $10 billion Goldman Sachs deal, the term sheet provides that once Goldman redeemed the preferred shares, it has the option to purchase back the warrants at a fair market value at a timing of its discretion. Why did you draft a provision that allowed Goldman Sachs, the borrower, to determine when the taxpayers must sell their warrants?
In terms of how a specific warrant deal was structured, I'm sure that the deal that was structured for Goldman was the same as for all the other warrants.
But why would you leave the taxpayer, who in this instance is the creditor, why would you let the borrower set the terms?
I would say this, Madam Congresswoman, those warrants are going to be very profitable for the taxpayer.
Yes, they're going to be very profitable, sir, but if Goldman can set the terms and when they can be redeemed, we're not going to get back what we deserve to get back for the American people.
There's a process, and it's not a process where Goldman Sachs sets the terms.
Well, that's
it's not
what
a process where any bank sets the terms.
The term sheet provides that at a timing of its discretion. That's what the term. Could you check into that for me with your friends?
Okay, well, I will check into it, but the timing is one thing. The process for how that's set is another.
Well, I don't know how you're defining your terms there, but it's pretty clear that Goldman Sachs will determine when our taxpayers, when we will get our money back and what we're going to. That's a pretty serious question. Let me go to another point here, and this is who you help and who you don't help. Last year, Warren Buffett bought into Goldman Sachs at a level of $5 billion. Under your watch as Secretary of Treasury, our taxpayers were forced to invest $10 billion in Goldman, not counting the counterparty deal with AIG. Warren Buffett received 43.5 million options worth $1.8 billion for his $5 billion gamble. Okay, our taxpayers, by contrast, got 9.5 million options worth $500 million, 1/5 as much for their investment, which was double his. Buffett is being paid 10% interest on his preferred stock. Yet taxpayers only get 5% for the first 5 years and 9% for the second 5 years. Buffett has a 10% call premium. Taxpayers have no premium rights. Buffett got $5 billion of present value for his $5 billion investment. Taxpayers have $4.9 billion of present value for their $10 billion investment. How is this fair? And why did Warren Buffett get a better deal for his stockholders than you, as Secretary of Treasury, got for the American taxpayer at Goldman?
There's a very clear reason why. When we structured the capital to go into all of the banks, it was the middle of a crisis. Attractive capital was not available. The reason we had to do this is capital was not available. We wanted to do something that was available not where we were providing it under duress, but providing capital which was structured so that the taxpayer would get paid back. The capital we put out
At
was,
the call of Goldman, whenever it
well,
sets the terms.
First of all, the banks, we put out the capital. It's preferred stock. It wasn't voting. It was 5% initially, so the taxpayer is going to get paid back all of that money, 5% interest and warrants, as various firms, and a number of firms have done well and have paid back. But we were not. You do not stop, Madam Congresswoman, you do not stop a financial panic by putting capital and offering capital to banks on the only terms that it's available in the middle of a crisis. So what we were doing was moving quickly to put capital to a range of major financial institutions that were picked because they were systemically important. And I would also argue to you that the fact that a number of those institutions have done well and
They've done very well,
and have paid back the
yes, Mr.
taxpayer
Paulson.
is something we should all be pleased about rather than the reverse.
Well, I wish you'd gotten a better deal for the taxpayers. You certainly got a good deal for a lot of your former clients. I have additional questions, Mr.
I
Chairman,
would
but
say
I'll
to
wait.
you, I think if you look at what the taxpayer is going to make on a number of these companies, it will have been good. But the biggest advantage to the taxpayer, by far the biggest advantage to the taxpayer, is what didn't happen. And that we did not have a collapse, and we did not have double the number of foreclosures in Ohio and double the level of...
Oh, they're happening, Mr. Paulson. You ought to come and visit us in Ohio and see the results of your handiwork.
Well, I know how terrible it is. I'm just telling you it would have been worse.
That's your best argument. That's not good enough.
Yeah,
Well,
again,
I guess
the
I'll
gentlewoman's
never
time has
persuade you
expired.
because you probably don't agree there was a crisis.
Gentleman from Mr. Fortenberry.
I agree it was a crisis of your making for very...
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Thank you.
Congressman Fortenberry from
Thank you.
Nebraska.